What do you think more generally of using the Clean Air Act to address climate change? What do you think, April?
Well, I think it can be a piecemeal approach, whereas if you're using a carbon tax and you're just putting a tax on the actual fuel source, I think that's a lot easier administration. I think the Clean Air Act has been very successful, and it's a very stringent statute, and there's a lot of agency expertise, so in that way I think that it can accomplish a lot.
What do other people think about using the Clean Air Act? I mean, Congress is considering repealing major portions of it.
It'll be awkward.
What? Tell us more.
I think that whether EPA has the flexibility to do it in a way that doesn't create such
Teaching is like arguing a case in court every day, because you're standing up in front of the class, you know, making a presentation, trying to inspire people, trying to inform people. It's a rush. It's sort of like acting, I guess, for me. For that to kick in, what would have to happen? What would EPA have to
cap, a national cap that would be distributed to states?
Even before that, what would EPA have to do?
Establish a NAAQS?
Yeah. EPA has said it's not going to designate CO2 as a NAAQS pollutant.
Okay.
Okay? But here's the question. Do you think EPA has the discretion not to set a NAAQS standard for CO2? They've said it endangers public health and welfare. We have a very diverse array of students here from all over the world, all over the country, different ethnic, cultural backgrounds. If you can relate the issues that we're discussing in the law to what they've experienced in their own lives, that's what really makes it a great environment for learning.
So based on the absurd results, not intended by Congress, they are going to change thresholds, and they are going to make some fine-tuning on the act, so only greenhouse gases are covered to major sources.
What Raphael is referring to is EPA is saying we're going to draw a line for major sources that's much, much higher than what the statute calls for. The statute talks about major sources for NAAQS pollutants being those that emit, in some cases, over 100 tons per year, and for a select group of sources over 250 tons per year. What is EPA proposing to set the line at?
25,000.
And now they've also signaled that they're willing to go
up to 75,000.
And what Raphael's exploring in his paper is, where does EPA get the authority to set such a high threshold when the statute doesn't seem to allow that?
I believe that once the endangerment finding passes judicial review, they have no discretion but to regulate greenhouse gases.
The students are digging deep into some of these questions on their own. Sometimes it's because they're doing a paper, sometimes they've had an internship, and all of those experiences with the law and with the problems that environmental law is trying to confront adds enormously to the learning experience in the classroom.
So, I mean, it seems that the top 100 coal-fired power plants are the major contributors to global warming in this country. That's why I always think that perhaps a certain tax on coal would allow for renewable energy sources or energy efficiency projects to become cheaper instead of just looking for new ways to just continue using coal.
Yeah.
Well, but having a technology standard raises the price too substantially, which
Right.
works the same as whether you have a cap and trade or a tax.
It may be less efficient, but
Could be less efficient.
it could have the similar impact.
And what may be good about the Clean Air Act, using that to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, is that maybe it allows you to incorporate a lot of the state and regional programs that are already in place and sort of leading the way, allow those states to continue to be laboratories and fold all that stuff in, maybe scale some of that stuff up in a way that sort of a comprehensive national legislation might fail to do.
That's a good point. There's a lot of talk in Congress about preempting the states as part of the package of climate legislation. What do you think, April? Do we need to preserve the state autonomy here?
Well, states are obviously laboratories for new regulations and new scientific standards and everything, but I do think I have a little bit of sympathy for the auto industry, just because, you know, they have to make so many cars. They have to, there are high costs with complying with all these different regulations in different states, and I just think it's a lot more efficient to have one standard.
Yeah.
I think if you use the Clean Air Act as a method to establish sort of federal floors, and then you allow the more stringent standards of the states let them, give them the flexibility through the state implementation programs, allow them to work. I think that preserves a lot of the good work that's already been done.
So where are we going to get the big dent? Where are we going to get the big impact? The game-changing impact, do you think, Brian?
Well, I think the nature of finding is huge for EPA. I mean, command and control. If policy just keeps seesawing, when we were talking about cap and trade, carbon tax, and cap and dividend, which I'm pretty sold on it. You tax carbon at the well, or at the mine, at the port of entry, and then that ripples down through the economy, and the end users, individuals, get monthly rebates from the money made from those allowances, basically. So
We didn't cover this in class, but did you notice how much savings EPA estimates from the fuel economy standard over the life of the vehicle?
Large chunk.
That was like $3,000 in fuel savings.
I wonder what the psychology texts show about that. Like, as opposed to a straight tax where you're going to the pump, prices are higher, you're paying $3.50 a gallon for gas. Maybe that doesn't change your behavior. But maybe if you're actually getting...
Law students have so many different roles to fill. They can be lawyers representing clients in business or representing environmental groups. They can be working in agencies. They can be in think tanks trying to come up with new approaches to policies. So I like to think that at Vermont Law School, we're really teaching the whole person.
Energy efficiency is the first step in saving money and going green. But to actually offset emissions, it's going to cost.
Unless you believe the president when he says the way out of the recession is the same way out of our climate crisis, do you think? How do people feel about that? You think the American people would buy that argument? Raphael looks doubtful. Our students need to be well prepared in the law, in science, in economics, in politics. That's the kind of individual that we're trying to help build a long-term professional career on here at Vermont Law School.